Hey everybody, I thought I'd quickly do a video on my 2014 XV950 Bolt. So what you're going to see is actually the stage it's at now. It's a one owner bike, less than 5,000 miles on it, but it's now obviously getting on for 10 years old nearly. But you'll see some still pictures as well, so you will actually see the things that I've taken off, and as I've taken them off, just might give you an idea of what you're facing when you're taking the rear end of one of these things off, the different wiring, the light fittings, all that sort of stuff. So hopefully I find it quite useful, and I'll talk you through the bits I've done and what it takes to get it to this particular stage. As with all my pickup trucks, cars, bikes I've had over the years, I'm never really happy with them stock. So I don't know whether we're going to call this a bobber or a custom or urban. It doesn't really matter. The critical thing is you build the bike or the car or the truck and make it for you, not anyone else. And also I tend to try and buy as good a base bike or car as I can. It can really save you a lot of grief and time and money in the long run. So this particular one, as I say, when you see the video, you'll see that it's a pretty mint condition, to be fair, and he'd hardly ridden it. So let's get into it. I haven't chopped this one as severely as the other ones, because this time I actually do want it more rideable and me not getting power washed. And even though it's a lovely day today in the southwest of England, in Devon, where we're from and where we're filming this today. And so if you know these bikes, they come virtually right down to here, and with the original bike you have the number plate there and the tail light, which is a separate wiring loom. You'll see some pictures in the videos pop up as I talk, which hopefully show you some of these things. So that has, it's not a separate wiring loom, part of the wiring loom, but its own wires. So you have a red light reflector number plate and a number plate illuminating light. Then they have which is a plastic section. This is right down to here, and then you obviously have the big indicators on the side. And this tail light, as you know, sits up here and is fixed in that plane. So when I started to chop all this off, I had to be very cautious in terms of, you can't just do a straight line cut down, because when you look at the profile of what comes from the manufacturer, it curves this way, down here, shapes back out again, and of course the rails. And in a way I wanted this one to maybe be a bit more like, could it fool someone in saying that is a factory finish. So got the disc cutter out, and away you go in terms of chopping and changing it all. So this is an overhead shot, and you can see in the right hand side it looks like a green hole. That's the hole, the most furthest down point where the rear light is fixed, and my cut line was behind that, where you can see the word Yamaha. So that's how much I cut to, how much I cut off, and the finish line of the mudguard now. So a quick shot with the mudguard removed, but the two rails still bolted on to the bike. You have two indicator wires to both indicators are all pulled out the way. And as I say, the other wiring that went to the number plate and the existing brake light is also just all tucked out the way. So hopefully what you can see here is the structure of the underside of the rear fender, the mudguard. If you look, you will see the actual braces, as I call them, if you like, that are going from one side of the mudguard to the other. So when you look, the two fixing bolts that you're seeing, they actually fix the mudguard to the rails. But not only that, they hold those cross braces in place. And also your rear seat that fixes down through the top of the mudguard also is drilled through the rear fender, and therefore bolts down through the top of those braces. When you undo the bolts, the braces are completely detached from the fender, and what you'll see in a moment is an image of me spot welding those braces to the underside of the fender, which means I can then take that fender off completely as one unit away from the fixing rails. So you can see under here now that the two supporting ribs, as I call them, have been spot welded and held in place. And in a moment on the top, you'll see I filled all the top holes in with weld as well and ground that back. But they can be drilled out so that you can still use the seat fixings. And also you'll see a first test fit of quite a large steel plate that I made up as well, which ended up being a bit shorter because there's a big gap from the tyre to the underside of the mudguard rear fender from behind the bike, and I wanted to close that gap in. So this was just the first test fit of that. So you can now see actually fitting on the bike, the plate that sits underneath has closed the gap between the fender rear mudguard and the tyre, and is actually all welded in place. The top of the mudguard and fender, you can also see all those holes are welded in and been ground. So the initial cut is all made in and ground and smoothed. All the welds are done. But also the rails, if you look closely at the two outer rails, I made tiny little plates up to finish those rails off, because otherwise they'd just end up in an open cavity. And so we've just tack welded and welded those in permanently, ground them on, and actually put them on the bike. So pretty much now on a final fit. So just to mention, you see the indicators that they have just 2 wires using original connectors, which makes life a lot simpler. It's all tucked up under the mudguard, so 2 wires to each indicator. The original wiring that went to the original number plate light, I've also just extended and ran to that number plate light there. Sorry, my number plate. And I've just put an LED light that's in that particular bracket. That number plate bracket is straight from Amazon, but I did strengthen the rear with a plastic number plate. In the UK, we just have those plastic yellow ones on the back, and that's got a steel plate behind it to reinforce it. So sitting on top of that, I did have to make another bracket because of the orientation of the existing bracket on the existing rear brake light. So that brake light now bolts to that bracket that holds the number plate on. And again, it's existing wiring, existing connectors, all on the loom that I just ran down the bottom rail, frame rail of the motorbike, that then feeds up into that rear light. So what we've got now is a much simplified version of the back end. And on these, you will notice that I've moved the number plate over to the side. The rails, so these 2 bolts actually fit the whole rear end now onto the bike, and these 2 fixings are just fixing the mudguard rear fender onto the rails. Obviously I had to drill and cut out and replace these fixings here. Sorry, I had to kind of replace for the wiring of the indicators to go through. These are from a UK company called Motune, I think they're called, and I'll put links into the video as best I can as well. They're about 80 quid a pair, but in the past I've used a lot of plastic stuff and other manufacturers, and they're just crap, you know. And you're buying stuff that is going to go for quite a lot on a motorbike, so it's best to buy good quality where you can. These are billet aluminium, machined out. You can take them completely apart. You can unscrew this, you can then just take the lens out and put orange or clear ones in. I've got orange bulbs in there because I didn't want to go LED, and it's a very simple 2-wire system. So on the bike, you'll see from the pics now, you've just got 2 wires coming to both indicators. The number plate and the bulb for the number plate is on the other side, the original rear light. I've used all the original connectors and just extended the wire. It makes life a lot easier. What you may find though, when you just keep bulbs on especially motorcycles, is if they're not the same wattage as what came with the bike, the flash rate won't be correct. So it's dead easy on this one. I think they were 15 or 20 watts. You get that wattage bulb and suddenly the flash rate is perfect. So as simple as that. So no significant changes to the shocks, nothing else been done on the bike. The seat, as you can see, is completely custom, but that is the original seat, and I've had it completely recovered, and I work with a guy who does the seats. We'll talk about the paint, which I'm really proud of in a moment, but that's the original seat, exactly the same fixings, and I've just had it completely recovered in that aged leather and stitching, which leather ain't the best out in the rain, but ayo, you know, it's got to look good, hasn't it? So as you can see on this particular bike, I've done a Vance & Hines Comp Series rear slip-on, and you've also got the Vance & Hines air intake. These are completely simple, very much bolt the items on. You get the bracket as an adapter for this one. This is about £350 in England. This is close to £500 in the UK as well. But what I've also done around here is a lot of these brackets and these heat guards, I obviously painted those as well because I didn't like the original factory finish. It's a strange colour they chose. So what I will do, as I've done with these fixings, I will eventually paint the fixings black maybe as well. And really that's it on this side of the bike. Might be useful for anyone thinking of putting these 2 mods on to obviously hear how it actually sounds. So now the bike is warmed up, that's just on tick over. this particular colour I've chosen, it's actually darker than probably what you're looking at now. It looks kind of gold, but it's actually like a bronze, and it's from a Valspar. It's a Valspar paint, and the paint code is 18E1244, which I've done the rear fender in. Obviously the black is just a black gloss with a sparkling and metallic, and rear fender, rails, tank and front mudguard, to hopefully give it the sort of quality and finish that I wanted. I use a local guide to Devon, use local guides where I can, and I'm really pleased with it, and it does really show. It's probably darker in real life than what's showing at the moment. As you can see, everywhere on the bike is so clean, which makes life a lot easier in terms of when you're putting new stuff on. So the front end is very simple. I've done nothing to the shock absorbers, nothing to the headstock, nothing to the bearings. People say about a little bit of a wobble when you're riding it. I've had it up to 100 miles an hour. I find it comfortable. The handlebars, the levers, everything for me is completely as I want it. I've left it stock. Obviously you've got the same set of indicators on the front, which again you just adapt the wiring to lose it up and in behind the loom. And the headlight, you'll notice, has also been painted, so I stripped that back and painted that in black gloss. And I've also used a wrap just on the top forks just to take some of that chrome away. And nothing really done on this side at all, apart from a good clean. This cover, you can take this off without spilling oil all over your driveway, and then, as I did, just give it a coat of black gloss and paint it up, just to lose it in. All the wiring I've done on the back, I've had to use a couple of cable ties because I didn't have chassis clips. I made up a plate for this as well. This is a bracket off of eBay, and obviously I did have to make another adapter bracket because of the orientation of the fixings on the original light to this one. And again, I always make those things, buy good quality or make them strong. I make up a couple of plates. I once had one where it was a 90-degree aluminium bracket on my bobber, which you would have seen pictures earlier in the video, the Kawasaki with the flaming skulls, and it was aluminium, and just through vibration the 90-degree just snapped. So I hear this scraping along the road, thinking it's the engine. Look down, and my number plate and my light is all scraping along the float. So I have to pick it up, hold it with my left hand once I got into third gear, and try and drive home on the bike with it in third gear, because that's my only brake light, stopping anyone slamming into the back of me. So yeah, it's always worth buying or making good, strong, rigid parts for bikes. It's something I'm telling you guys what you know, but if you've never done it, yeah, don't scrimp on it. So there you have it, guys. This is my vision of the Bolt. Hopefully you've had some tips and tricks, I should say, some evidence of what you're going to find when you take these parts off, and what's needed to be grinding and welding and filling in all the holes, because the ribs under here are actually what you can fix the seat to, which you'll see in the pictures. I've tack welded all those in place, so now that enables me to take the rear off as a complete one piece. So it's really useful to make those add up and changes and that sort of thing. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully it's given you some ideas, maybe a bit of inspiration, and it'd be nice if you give it a thumbs up. Thanks a lot, guys. Ride safe.